Barrett, I hope you're doing well, man. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
What's up, Ryan? You guys got a busy day going on there in Alabama today.
Oh,
Good to be
yeah.
on.
Yeah, the eyes of the nation are on us. So we're just glad to escape all the political conversation and get a little football worked into the conversation.
There you go. That's right.
So
football, thankfully, crosses party lines.
Yeah, it's a bipartisan conversation. Hey, Barrett, we were just talking about the Heisman, and I know that's a little bit of a voting procedure. And we were talking about, we watched some of the ratings begin to dip a little bit, and we were talking about how other players should be eligible, not just quarterbacks, not just running backs, but offensive linemen like what you played or defensive players. Do you believe that they should sort of have a seat at the table with all of us who vote in the Heisman Trophy?
Well, I think the Heisman Trophy is turned into the best offensive player on the best team generally. So I just think you have to understand what it is. I mean, there are other awards that kind of award those kind of things, and the Heisman is what it is. Obviously, they have a storied tradition, and they can give that award, I guess, to whatever type of player they want. I think it's the profile lately, with the very few exceptions, has been either a quarterback or a running back generally. Who is kind of the biggest game changer in the sport. And, I think they got it right this year. I know I talked last week about Baker Mayfield and just how much respect I had for him. And as a player, I might clarify, and just the way he played the game. And I got to watch him last week and was just very impressed with the way he played in that Big 12 championship, with the way he kind of picked apart TCU's defense. So, I guess you can make that argument. I think there's been times where there have been guys who have gotten that seat at the table, whether you're talking about Ndamukong Suh and guys like that, and obviously there have been some guys who played also defense who were able to win it. So it's you could definitely make that argument, but I think the way I view it, it's the Heisman, trust the award, they can give it to whoever they want, and if that's the people they want to give it to, that's fine with me.
Well, and going back here for just a couple of minutes, the offensive lineman, it's hard to give any stats that we actually understand. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
I wish, I know Pro Football Focus puts out some, and but I mean, Nick Saban doesn't hand us a stat sheet at the end of the game like he does the skill position guys, the tackles for the defensive guys. So it's just kind of hard to evaluate, the offensive lineman. I kind of depend on guys like you. When we ask about the offensive lineman, I'm like, hey man, what'd you see? What, and you've told us several times, don't panic. The offensive line's going to be fine. They've done a good job here or there in some areas that they need to improve upon. But it's kind of hard to measure that with just some numbers, raw numbers that we look at.
No, you're right. It's definitely hard to measure number-wise. And I think it's even harder to measure from the standpoint of there are many offensive linemen around who are extremely talented players and, that are great offensive linemen individually. And then you put them in a group and for whatever reason, they haven't worked well with the guy next to them, whether it's communication or whatever. So there's just so much that goes into being an offensive lineman. Not only is it the skill and the talent you have to have and the footwork and the technique, but it's also, how do you play with the guy next to you and how do you make the other guys around you better? So it's definitely very hard to quantify. I actually this year was a part of the Joe Moore Award where we studied a lot of tape on offensive lines and had the task of kind of figuring out who the best offensive line was. So I watched a lot of offensive line tape, and sometimes it is really hard to put your finger exactly on stats. And they are doing a better job now of starting to develop some stats and kind of some next level stats on offensive lines as a whole of how they perform in a game. But it is still just really hard sometimes to put on paper. But I think it's like any other position. If you know the offensive line play, it's kind of when you see it on tape, it jumps out at you what a good offensive lineman is and what a good offensive line looks like together. So it definitely it's just something, a position that people are not used to watching. I think when most people watch the game, frankly, they watch the ball, which is fine. It's just the way the sport works. But I think there are many people who kind of who've watched the game for a long time and can kind of see the whole picture, who kind of have a little better understanding of sort of the offensive line play. And it's something that frankly, just doesn't come naturally. It comes from hundreds of hours and hours of watching tape. So I wish I could help you and give you kind of the key to reading and figuring out who a good offensive lineman is. But the fact is, it's just kind of something that you have to put in the work to figure out. And, it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours and a lot of practice. And a lot of times, maybe even playing the position and having been there to really understand exactly what it looks like when you see it.
Well, even Coach Saban, many times he's asked in the post-game press conference, somebody will say, how did your offensive line perform? And he'll literally say, I wasn't watching the offensive lineman. I was watching the skill position guys. He goes, and after a scrimmage, he'll ask about an offensive line. He said, I can tell you more when I go back and watch the tape on Monday. I can give you a recap, but I'm not able to tell you right now how they played, as an offensive line. He'll answer that question for us, and then he'll say, he's almost become like a media policy. You don't ask him about the offensive line, how they played, because he didn't really have an answer for you until he goes back and watches the tape and sees how those guys grade out. How do they grade them out? And did you know, do they hand this to you Monday, Tuesday? Hey, say, Barrett Jones, you're 92% grade. How do they do that inside that building?
Yeah, different coaches do it differently. I've definitely had coaches who did that, who went on and there was every play and gave you a grade after the games. And the way that works is, you had several different marks on each play. You had a mark for assignment and a mark for your technique, and some coaches even had a mark for effort. And so you could kind of lose a point on any one of those three things, or you could get a triple minus, which is the worst of all three, where you use bad technique and you miss your assignment and do it with bad effort. So there's a lot that goes into grading, but yeah, there were definitely some times and different coaching staff that I had over the years who would assign you that grade after each game to let you know the percentage of your plays that you executed, what you were intended to execute. And there are a lot of position groups actually who do that, who go in and grade every single play. Even a quarterback, he's being graded on things that are not just in the passing game of is he throwing the fake on the run plays, the bootleg action, is he taking proper footwork. So there's different coaching staffs that have done it different ways in my time, but you're always going to watch the film together, and some coaches feel the need to assign a number to that, and others, not as much. So it just kind of depends. In the NFL, we actually had a fine system set up based on how many minuses you got and how many. You could also get kind of bonuses, little small bonuses based on certain blocks, like a pancake block. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but generally there is some type of grade system, whether it's internal or whether it's something you share with the players.
Who's the meanest defensive lineman, toughest defensive lineman, college or pro, that you ever had to block?
Ooh, I don't know about meanest and toughest, but I'm going to say the toughest one I ever had to block was Aaron Donald in the NFL. That guy is pretty good, and I blocked him in practice every day for about 2 years. And I was very, very fatigued of that very quickly because he's a really, really good football player and one of the best I've ever seen, maybe if not the best I've ever seen, playing through technique. And I think he'll be in the Hall of Fame someday. So I think that he got the best of me several times, but I can't hang my head on that one because sometimes you just look at him on film and he's an absolute freak. And I know probably a lot of listeners don't watch a whole lot of St. Louis Rams film, but next time St. Louis Rams, LA Rams now film, but next time you watch the LA Rams, they're having a great season this year, by the way. Watch number 99 in the middle. That guy is an absolute savage.
Got it. Barrett, let me help me fill in the question. Alabama beats Clemson by doing what?
I'm going to say Alabama beats Clemson. If the offensive line plays really well, I'm more cliche, but I think the offensive line has got to play well up front. Their defensive line is the best unit on their football team, and one of the best units in the country, maybe. And so, I think if our offensive line plays well and matches up with those guys and is able to establish the run game and give Jalen time, and I think we got a good shot to win the game. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think Clemson's very good, and I've said this before. I think if the game had been the week after the SEC championship game, frankly, I wouldn't have felt very good about it. The way that we were playing and the way Clemson was playing, but you just never know in this month layoff. A lot can change, a lot can happen, and give Nick Saban a long time to prepare, not to mention the fact that so many guys will be getting healthy. So it should be a great game, and it's something I'm very excited to watch and see. And, obviously, you hope that the defense is healthier and ready to roll because they're going to have to play a really good game. This is a much different Clemson team in a lot of ways than last year. I think their defense is a lot better than the defense I saw on tape a year ago coming into this football game. So it should be an interesting run. It should be an interesting game. I'm really looking forward to seeing. Actually, I'm not going to be able to go, unfortunately. I'm going to be working that day on SEC Network. So I'll be doing some stuff in studio that day in Charlotte. So I won't be able to be there, but I think it'll be a really fun game, and I can really see it going either way.
Yeah, and just speaking of that, I was thinking about it. The last couple of Clemson Alabama games, you've been on the sidelines doing, and I don't what do they call it? Where you've got a
the Homer cast.
The Homer cast. That was the word. And you've
Right.
sort of watched the game from the sidelines. I was kind of expecting you to be on the sidelines, even though it's an Alabama Clemson semifinal game.
I know, yeah. I would love to have been in the sidelines. They're not, they only do the Homer cast for the national championship. So hopefully we can reprise it maybe with I don't know, somebody from Georgia or Oklahoma if Alabama makes it there. But we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, it definitely will be different watching this one on television instead of being able to watch it about 2 feet away from the action.
Now, being an SEC guy, have you built your shield for the national media if Alabama and Georgia play for the national title? I mean, the darts are going to be thrown from some of those national guys at the SEC like they have been all year.
Yeah, no doubt. There'll be a lot of darts, and I think it's fine. I love it when the national guys get mad about the SEC, and it's just all the more fun. And, I've said it before. Obviously, it worked out well for me that Alabama made it this year, but I think it's one of the most fun years of college football I can remember, with all the controversy and all the arguing. I think that's part of what makes it so fun. Maybe that's a little twisted. I love controversy so much, but I loved it this year, coming down to the wire, and everybody's mad and up in arms, and I think that's part of the allure of the whole deal is the way college football works. So I thought it was great. I thought it was a great way to finish. I think I would have been saying that even if Alabama had been left out, even though I'm sure it would have been blinded about the committee, but I still love the setup college football has right now. I think it creates a lot of excitement. I think they're going to see absolutely huge ratings for these playoff games. In fact, they moved them back to New Year's Day, and it's 4 really quality football teams. I think it's going to be a huge day for college football.
Hey, Barrett, as we move forward, I want to comment. You retweeted a article from the Tuscaloosa News around Jeff Allen, and you quoted it, and you talked about being the attention to detail and certainly the best in the country when you look at Alabama's athletic trainers. But this year, more importantly, you look at guys like Christian Miller, you look at guys like Terrell Lewis, were season-ending injuries, and because of this medical staff, because of the way they operate with Jeff Allen, everybody under in that building, they were able to get those guys back. And I think it's a great article by Ben Jones in the Tuscaloosa News. I know you quoted that and had a comment as well.
Yeah, those guys are absolutely incredible, and some of my favorite guys in the whole facility are those guys in the training room. Jeff Allen does a fantastic job, and if you've ever met Jeff Allen, anyone who's ever met him knows what kind of guy he is. He really is just a tremendous guy, and not only that, but he's great at his job. And every single player that I've ever been around loves Jeff Allen. Every time I go back to the campus, one of the first places I go is always the training room to see him and Jeremy Giselle and Ginger Gilmore. And there's a lot of people in there that do a really nice job. And then on top of all of that, the fact that we have a tremendous training room staff, we have the best doctors in the country in the Andrews group. Obviously got Lyle Kane and Norman Waldrop with the 2 names on my tweet, but there's a lot of other guys who really do a great job. Denton Emble's another one who works with us a lot. It's awesome to be able to have that there, and then Jimmy Robinson doing our internist work. So it's kind of a dream team of doctors who all do a fantastic job, and the players really get the best care in the country, I think. And we've seen that results-wise. I think a big part of what they do is injury prevention. The fact that injuries obviously have witnessed this year a little bit. It's really kind of just been noticed because it's been so concentrated in one position group. But I would say, I don't have any stats about this up on hand, but it just seems to me like every year we really are fortunate numbers-wise with the number of players who have injured now for the season. And a big reason of that is because of the job these guys do, not only helping players recover from injuries, but also helping them prevent injuries. And obviously Scott Cochran and his staff are a big part of that too. So it's a well-oiled machine over there. Nothing's left up to a chance. Everybody is working hard and doing their job. Those guys, oftentimes are not seen, except for maybe when a player goes down on the field. But it's a really cool deal. And my last thing I'll mention is the fact that not only is Jeff Allen a great trainer, he's also he's an entrepreneur and a designer. He's the one who really came up with that tent idea that you see now even the NFL and all across football. That was him and the medical team that kind of designed that tent. So a pretty cool deal, and great to have those guys as a part of the program.
You know, and I'm not trying to recruit for Alabama, but I had a parent one time tell me, he said, you never believe, and when we were recruiting, he said, man, we traveled all over the country looking at different schools, and we would go through strength conditioning, and he said, you never think about medical staff. This guy's son played at the University of Alabama. He said, but after going through it, if I could talk to one parent, I would make sure that they had a top-notch, because you're going to get injured in the game that we play in. The way, I mean, you got to have a medical staff. Is he comparable to the NFL, what Alabama's got set up here?
No, it's not at all comparable to the NFL. It's much better than what the NFL has. It's not even close.
Really?
The NFL, there's some. I mean, they do a good job too, but I mean, the amount of time and money and facilities and everything that Alabama has. There's no recruiting in the NFL, so you don't really have to beef up that part of your program to sell anybody, because obviously you have to draft and free agency. So I mean, they do a good. That's a long conversation, but
sure.
At the end of the day, the medical staff and the NFL works for the owners, and so there's kind of this give and take. Even though I worked with a lot of great guys in the NFL, they're still at the end of the day they kind of work. They work for the owners and are not always necessarily only doing what's best for you, I guess. And whereas at Alabama, you never would get that feeling. So it's definitely a notch above anywhere I've ever been. That's why in my tweet I said at all levels. And again, I'm not taking away. There's a ton of great guys in the NFL. It's just the way it's set up. It's kind of there's kind of a natural distrust there between the players and the training staff a lot of times.
Yeah, and also I'll mention this and I'll move on. Jeff Allen took a pretty good hit at Auburn too. I'm sure you probably saw the photo, man. He broke his ribs and his wrist during.
I did.
Yeah,
but, Jeff Allen's a pretty tough guy. You wouldn't want to mess with him. He works out a lot, and he's a strong dude. So I'm sure he put a lick on whoever that was.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But I was very close to it, man. But he bounced up. I mean, he didn't even I mean, he was ready to go out on a play if somebody would have got hurt. So he probably didn't even know he was hurt until after. But, hey, Barrett, we always have a chance to throw it back to you. Certainly this week to get through the week in an inspiration scripture. I'll throw it back to you, my friend.
Great. Tonight I'm in Psalm 19:1. It says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the works of his hands. Ryan, I just got off an airplane and I was flying. And every time I fly, look out the window and just kind of had a chance to really reflect on kind of this time of year and this season and really God and what he created. And I think it's easy to get caught up and everything that's going on, towards the Christmas season, and you get really busy and you got a lot going on and you kind of forget sort of the purpose of life and kind of what it's really all about. And so that was just a great reminder to me that, hey, God created all this and he created me too with a purpose of honoring and glorifying him. And, there's a lot of busyness right now. And a lot of things going on that, hey, the purpose of my life is not, to acquire stuff or to get great gifts or to do this or that, but it's really to honor the Lord in the way I live my life. And that's really my purpose.